and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
And I'm Merryn Johns.
Sitting in for Ann, who probably will be back next week after the election, although we don't know if we're going to know the results. And happy Halloween. Could it be any scarier?
That's right. Absolutely. Well, it's a week of stark contrasts in the presidential race. And the case for stopping Trump with Kamala Harris could not be stronger.
Trump stages a fascist hate rally at Madison Square Garden, and LGBTQ activists led the protests against it.
And we have some good news. There's more than 1,000 LGBTQ candidates running for office this year.
Right, across the country. We'll tell you how to find out about them. Shortly before dying, a conservative combat veteran recorded a message of support for his trans son. It's only about a minute, but we're going to share it with you.
And over in Arizona, Hobbs, she's the first governor to march in Pride at a good time too, because a terror plot was foiled on Phoenix Pride this year.
Gay writer and critic Gary Indiana has died at 74.
And the Archbishop of Canterbury has said that gay sex is not sinful.
UK military veterans who were expelled for being gay are demanding greater compensation than the government is offering.
And a Chinese trans icon known as the Chinese Oprah has apparently been banned from performing live in China.
There's a crackdown on gay people in Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast.
And we have a bumper review session if we get to it all. We've got lots of plays. Andy and I have been to the theatre and a couple of other things to talk about.
Documentaries, Broadway shows, everything, including a lot of LGBTQ-themed stuff.
Yes.
But we start with the show that is dominating the news, and that is this is our last show before the election. And unlike the Washington Post and the LA Times, I at least have no hesitation in endorsing Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president. So there they are, the happy warriors. Look, so many of our rights are on the line up and down the ballot, but never has the contrast been more stark for LGBTQ voters and those who support LGBTQ rights and humanity. I mean, Trump and voters, wait a minute, where are I? Sorry. Trump and Vance have been anti-LGBTQ bigots forever. Yeah. And it's been on full display even this week. If you watch Gay USA with any regularity, you know this. So, I got my I voted sticker on, and we don't just need to vote, we need to help get the vote out, especially in the swing states.
How was that rally, though, at Madison Square Garden?
We'll
get to that.
We'll get to that.
It's just a shocker.
We just want to say that, remind people that it's unlikely that this election will be over on election night. It could be. Right. It's possible if there's a wide,
like a landslide
or something in certain swing states. But in states like Pennsylvania, they don't even count the absentee ballot. They don't even start counting the absentee ballots until after the polls close, and that takes time. It's the Republican state legislature that made that rule. I don't know why. But it's going to throw things into chaos. You can count on it. Trump will declare victory on election night and say,
I won.
I won. And then I'm very disturbed that Trump said at his rally that he and House Speaker Mike Johnson have a little secret. We're going to do really well with the House. We will tell you what it is when the race is over.
That was just...
Well, it sounds like the House is ready to throw the election to Trump. In other words, say not certify the election and say we're going to decide who wins. And if the House decides who wins, Trump wins because each state gets one vote. Each House delegation votes. This has happened in the United States history several times in the 19th century. Each state gets one vote, and of course more state delegations are dominated by Republicans. Anyway, many Republicans, including Trump, are running almost entirely on anti-trans ads. And new polling from a left-leaning firm, Data for Progress, found that more than half the voters think the attack ads have gotten out of hand and are mean-spirited. But the question is it moving any? They're all shameful. And it's 60%, including 41% of Republicans, said it was sad and shameful for GOP candidates to make anti-LGBTQ rhetoric a part of their campaigns. And ground media found that the ads did not shift voter choice, but did reduce public acceptance of trans people. So this has been an assault on trans people. Whatever it does to the election, it is demonizing trans people for the American public, and it's just disgusting.
I'd say more so than immigrants this year. You know, normally it's the immigrants, but
yes.
But no, it's definitely trans people this time round.
All right, so we'll get to the Trump rally.
Yeah, it was very, very disturbing. And it's very disturbing that this happens in New York City. You know, 20,000 people there, packed to the rafters, 20,000 people apparently outside waiting to get in. There were people camping overnight.
Yeah, and we only had, the things that Trump said. I mean, first of all, he's taken to calling Anderson Cooper Allison Cooper.
Yes.
What part of homophobia don't you understand?
It's really playing from the gutter, isn't it? But the warm-up people, the Tony Hinchcliffe comedian, was
Yes.
I found it was appalling. I was doing something else and
This is
really
the guy
half
who
watching
this is the guy who called
Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage.
Right.
And I was like what? And completely ignorant about how many famous and powerful Puerto Ricans there are in this country who are incredibly successful, terrific role models for their nation, and Jennifer Lopez and Ricky Martin and Bad Bunny,
Right.
and
They're all endorsing Kamala
Harris now. Yep.
Right, and they resent the comparison to the 1939 rally of the Bund in the old Madison Square Garden. This is the German-American group in February 1939 on the eve of war. Of course, they were celebrating Hitler and Nazism. There was a lot of that in those days in America. America was pretty split in those days.
It's true.
And because Germany declared war on us, and of course the Japanese attacked us at Pearl Harbor. And so like when Vance gets asked about these horrible comments, he says, "Oh, I didn't hear that." Well, it's all over the news.
Or you don't have a sense of humor.
And yeah, exactly. Don't be so sensitive when he calls you garbage.
Right.
So it's just, it's too much. It's
the Staten Island. What was his name? Scott Lobato, the speed artist who had to do that really awful. Sorry, I love art, but that was a dreadful portrait that he did in 3 minutes. But he said, "I'm here because I love God, girls, and guns." And I thought, oh wow, all right.
Well, so
simplifying it a little bit.
By the way, if you don't stop Trump, his folks have got literally 300 executive orders typed up and ready to go and sign on the first day. 300 executive orders, and believe me, they're not going to be friendly to us. You can count on, for instance, a ban on trans people in the military.
Absolutely.
Those kinds of things. What else?
Anything else about that rally?
Rise and Resist was out there protesting. I was with them.
Yep.
They were right across from Madison Square Garden on the steps of the New York main post office, and show the other picture. The theme was no dictators in the USA. Now this was, 100 people maybe, and there was another demonstration of a couple of hundred people that came over about this. I have to say, in 1939, when the Bund was there were 10,000 people in the streets of New York protesting Nazism.
Yeah.
And so it obviously hasn't completely caught on here.
No.
All right. And I just want to give you a reminder of how precious the right to vote is. I have a picture here, 1872, suffragist Susan B. Anthony, she was arrested for casting a vote for president. Women didn't get the right to vote in this country until 1920. So my grandmother could not vote until she was 40 years old. So it's not that long ago. My mother was born before suffrage. So black people were kept from voting in the Deep South for 100 years after the end of the Civil War, and for the most part. and it took a very vibrant civil rights movement and passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to correct that. And this Supreme Court has dismantled the Voting Rights Act for the most part, even though it was passed almost unanimously by the Congress. So this is a really disgusting Supreme Court, which, by the way, this week just said, oh no, Virginia, you can keep purging your voting rolls. We're hoping for the best. We're hoping for Trump so that he can appoint our replacements. It's just disgusting. By the way, the ACLU has won 4 voting rights cases, but at state courts in Nevada, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. So the state courts are with us in all those states, even in Nebraska, but not the Supreme Court, which is going to do everything it can. But a footnote to the Susan B. Anthony story, her home in Rochester, New York, but you can put that, it's now being used as a place to go vote.
That's great.
That's, a woman who was arrested for voting in 1872. Okay, Victory Fund.
Oh, yes. I was wondering if you wanted to say anything about
go ahead. No, go ahead.
The Harris closing argument.
Sure. I watched it, of course.
I mean, she stuck to her message, didn't she? What
Yes.
she really has been talking about. If you elect Trump, it'll be a vote for division and chaos, and it's time to turn the page on history and all of that.
Yes.
How do you think it's holding up, though, this argument?
Well, I mean, I thought it was great, and of course, what she was emphasizing was, I'm going to be a president for all people. I'm going to talk to my enemies. It didn't help that President Biden stepped on it by what he meant to say was that this guy Tony, whatever his name was garbage. But it sounded like he said Trump supporters were garbage. So that it stepped on the whole message of we're trying to get everybody together.
She said something that actually moved me, and I think it was the right direction, and I almost wish she'd been doing more of this in the time that she's spoken. But she said she just has an instinct to protect. And that really did resonate with me as a woman, because I think that she hasn't really highlighted enough the value she is going to bring to the role as a woman. I think there is value there, So I really did like that. She said, I don't know, I've always just been like that. My mother instilled it in me. And it felt really like a really genuine, off-the-cuff kind of remark.
Well, it's a great test for the country, because you still have people telling reporters, we're not ready for a woman. I don't know about a woman. I mean, that is still being said. I mean, 40 years after Margaret Thatcher and Indira Gandhi and who knows, whoever.
Jacinta Ardern, Julia Gillard,
the
lovely woman in Iceland.
Right, yes, lesbian.
Of course, yes.
Right.
I can never pronounce her name. But we've got a little bit of good news out of the Victory Fund, who have been, of course, working tirelessly to support. They've released Out on the Trail. This report, you can actually get it at victoryfund.org. I recommend you have a look at it. We have nearly double the number of out queer candidates running for office between 2020 and 24. They've nearly doubled, right?
Yeah.
But this year we have candidates in 49 states plus Puerto Rico and DC. They've got LGBTQ candidates. 444 LGBTQ Victory Fund endorsed candidates are on the November ballot alone.
Right.
So you've got 392 running for state legislature and 1 in 5 candidates running for local office. That's pretty incredible. 1 in 5.
And I keep reminding you, if you think there's nothing at stake in New York, we have Proposition 1, which is our Equal Rights Amendment. New York State, we protect all these rights, but they want to put it in the Constitution.
Yes.
So, in the 1970s, I remember, New Yorkers voted down an Equal Rights Amendment which just protected on the basis of sex, even though we had adopted the federal one, which never became part of the Constitution. So, this one covers sexual orientation, gender identity, reproductive rights, national origin, all these things. And we were supposed to have a big campaign for it, and I'm seeing nothing on television from the Democratic Party. Nothing.
Is this money? What is it about?
It's a long story, but the thing is, outside money is being spent heavily. Millions of dollars being spent on ads. And these ads, they're not even going after the trans thing anymore. They're just saying it covers national origin, and therefore illegal aliens are going to get benefits and voting rights. I mean, it's insane. It's all a lie, but we don't have an answer to it. So I'm very upset with my Democratic Party in New York. I hope we can hang on and win this thing. If you all vote for it, it will pass, but it's just a disgrace. Another disgrace. Okay. J.D. Vance was interviewed by a gay conservative podcaster, Tim Dillon, and said that he himself is not gay.
Oh, what a relief.
Exactly.
What a relief.
We don't want you.
No, right, not in the clubhouse.
And then Dillon said 9-year-old girls want beards, and said medical transitioning is conversion therapy to turn gay people trans. And he said he'd heard. Oh, this is what Vance said. He'd heard this from gay friends. Now, this is a man who has a good chance of becoming the president of the United States if Trump is elected. He's 78 years old, so it's very, very scary. All right. Odessa, Texas.
Oh, golly. Where did my note go? Here it is. I'd never heard of Odessa, Texas, but this is shocking to me. The people that run that county, city, town, are offering a minimum of $10,000 as a bounty for anybody who can find a transgender individual using a bathroom that aligns with their gender identity. Basically, citizens are being encouraged to sue a trans person that they find using the bathroom of their choice for a minimum of $10,000. There's no cap, to this lawsuit.
And there are criminal penalties for using the wrong, quote-unquote, wrong restroom. No exceptions even for disabled people who might need assistance using the restroom.
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
What do you think this is going to encourage? I say a vigilantism and a witch hunt, very possibly.
Vigilantism is already,
already a problem.
Happening. In Virginia, excuse me, a principal of a middle school in Frederick County was fired for starting an LGBTQ plus kindness class to provide a safe space for LGBTQ students. Dr. Jerry Putt, P-U-T-T, has served since 2017, and community members are fighting his firing. 1,300 of them signed an online petition.
It's terrible.
And that Ted Cruz is so evil and desperate, he ran anti-trans ads, they're all running anti-trans ads. He's attacking his Democratic opponent for the Senate, Democrat Colin Allred. But he used pictures of 2 cisgendered girls in the ad, misidentifying them as boys. And the girls were from Oregon, for God's sakes. And the Beaverton School District there has demanded that the ads be pulled. The pictures were used without parental permission.
That is unbelievable.
And I see in Wisconsin, the GOP is targeting Tammy Baldwin's partner. You know about this?
No, but I quickly saw that. What's happening?
They're accusing her of a conflict of interest because her partner, they're not married, is a financial advisor for high-end clients. This is a way for this guy, Hobbs, to try to remind voters, I'm running against a lesbian.
A lesbian, yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Low blow, yes.
That's what it's all about. She complies with all the laws about disclosure. But that doesn't matter at the end of a campaign. Let's give them a little positive story. How about talking about this combat veteran who did this video?
Yes, we have video of this, right? We have, this is a conservative combat vet who filmed a PSA advocating for his transgender son. Let's take a look.
And I want to say he did this and right before he died in a car accident, so it's kind of sad. But it's called Freedom, Love, and Liberty. And let's go to the videotape.
My name's Eric Childs. I'm an Operation Iraqi Freedom combat veteran. To me, serving my country was defense of freedom. Freedom means liberty. It means the ability to live your life as you see fit. I believe you should do the right thing, no matter whether it works for your party or it doesn't. Legislators shouldn't be anywhere near my child's doctor's office. My child has parents that get to decide his health care. We make that decision with educated and licensed professionals. The legislators that want to dictate these bills don't have the education nor the credentials to make these kind of decisions. And that's not okay. That's not freedom. That's regulation. I want my children to know that I support them. They'll never have to question themselves whether their dad loved them and supported who they were as a person.
Eric Childs. His widow, Jessica, said he saw this not as a political issue, but as a human one, recognizing that every child deserves the chance to thrive and feel whole. Amen. These are the kind of ads I think Democrats should have been running in response to all the attacks on them over trans issues.
Yeah.
I mean, just be forthright and defend your trans brothers and sisters.
Yeah, with real stories.
And non-binary people.
Yeah, I think you're able to demonize a whole group when you look at them as a sort of a monolith. If we were able to drill down into some of the actual unique stories, I think wouldn't be so easy to target us.
Okay. All right. A poll from something called the Art and Science Group found that 28% of prospective college students are ruling out attending colleges because of politics, with 75% of liberals ruling out schools because of state policies on abortion and LGBTQ rights. Texas was the most commonly excluded state for a good reason. And it should be noted that 65% of conservatives ruled out schools in liberal states. So the polarization continues, but especially if you are of childbearing age, you're going to go to school in Texas where the law is absolutely no abortions under any circumstances. I mean, you put your life, taking your life into your own hands.
You do.
All right. In Minneapolis, a big trans summit. You have this?
Oh, yes. So basically, Minneapolis has this Trans Equity Summit, which has been running since, I want to say 2014. So this would be its big 10th anniversary. They've had to reschedule it or postpone it. It was slated for October the 30th, but it's now been postponed over concerns that not enough trans people are actually involved in the planning of the event, which is designed as a one-day networking and access to resource kind of event. So basically what's happened is 10 local LGBTQ groups got together and wrote a letter and said they had grave concerns, didn't want the event to go ahead as is without the involvement of trans people.
Well, this came up in the AIDS movement all the time.
Yes.
Do you have people with AIDS on your
Actually,
board for
on
an
the
AIDS
board.
organization?
Exactly.
Are people with AIDS making and HIV/AIDS making the decisions?
Yep.
And I have to say, I can remember one time they were going to put this is a while ago. They were going to put a plaque up on the Stonewall Inn, the bar, and they hadn't invited anybody who was a Stonewall
It's unbelievable.
Participant to be in the ceremony.
No.
I mean, these people are still alive.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Well, an unnamed source told the Star Tribune that trans partners and voices have been sidelined as the project has evolved. And so Minneapolis City Council member Andrea Jenkins, we know her as she's the founder of the summit, and of course I believe she's the first out trans person elected. Yes. Basically, she said that it's the problem is the rotation of staff with the city councils. That trans people have moved on, they haven't been replaced, so there's no one there at the moment manning the fort. She said it's frustrating, but hopefully they're going to get this 10th summit back on track.
Manning or staffing the fort.
Yes, staffing, exactly.
Okay, let's go to Phoenix. This is a bad news, good news story.
Oh, yeah.
A grand jury has indicted a juvenile who was planning a terror attack on Phoenix Pride Festival. There he is, 17-year-old Marvin Janier Jallo, J-A-L-O. He will be tried as an adult on charges of terrorism and conspiracy to commit terrorism. He was doing this to further the goals of the Islamic State. He was very involved online on that stuff. He intended to make an explosive devices against Pride there, but also he was also making threats against things in New York City.
Oh, God.
So this guy was
I didn't know
busy.
that. That's terrible. So he's up for one count of terrorism, one count of conspiracy to commit terrorism. He had other unnamed co-conspirators who he met in a chat room. He's going to be tried as an adult.
But Phoenix Pride went on.
Yes, it did, without incident. And Katie Hobbs, the state's governor, she's the first to march in the Pride. Doesn't she look terrific?
She does.
I think she's doing a great job. I can imagine she has an awful lot of blowback, but it's important that she's doing
Blowback
it.
for what? For marching in a Pride march?
I think so. They're just being herself.
Okay. All right. We told you how the school board in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, this is Penn Ridge, Pennsylvania, north of Philly, was taken over by book banners. And in the last election, they got rid of all of them, put Democrats in. Okay. Well, Democrats swept the board, but some of the removed books have been restored, but not all. Trans students can use some restrooms aligned with gender identity, but not all.
Not all.
And for now, teachers are still banned from wearing identity markers, including rainbow flags, and there's been no move to reinstate DEI training. So they're treading slowly. Kids are still frustrated, but Ray, the bans of books, one of the students said in the story, we can get all the information we want on our phones. So, the board did remove language about gender and sex in a new policy on library materials. So they're making progress, but it's slow.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Because online you can go to any library now and get your e-reader set up, and you can just check books.
Any library,
out
or
and
you can use the New York Public Library wherever you are in the world.
Absolutely.
And they will give you access to materials that you can't get in these book banning places like Florida. Yeah. Okay.
Terrible. Where are we headed?
A Georgia man convicted of.
This is strange. This is a strange case. I felt, but we have a guy on the run. Police are searching for Devont Four. I believe it's how you pronounce his name. Four, convicted of murdering a trans woman. He jumped bail during his trial.
Skylar Gilmore in Stone Mountain, Georgia.
Yes, Skylar Gilmore. Now, this murder happened at an apartment complex, and he was apparently a man named Jaquan Brooks, 25 years of age, is also...
The two of them were convicted. But they let him out on bail while he's awaiting sentencing or something, and...
They've got Brooks, but they don't have Four, the other guy. He's on the run. So
watch out, he's armed and dangerous.
Apparently the hit was ordered by a local gang. That's what I
He was what?
The hit on this poor trans woman was ordered by a local gang in Georgia.
Wow.
So that's a bit scary.
Well, in New York State, a trans woman had a victory. Deanna LeTray, who said she was sexually assaulted and harassed in 2017 by authorities in Watertown, New York, Police Department, and Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. She reached a settlement in her suit against them. It was an NYCLU case, New York Civil Liberties Union. The departments have to reform. Jefferson County Correctional Facility will be required to house people based on gender identity and train all the staff. Now, LeTray was arrested after there was some domestic dispute in the home. I'm not sure if it involved her. But the officers commented on her gender identity, and they said they arrested her because we can't let you walk the streets looking and dressed like a woman, and then they yank her hair off.
Yes, and the booking photo was taken without the wig. They also said, you have serious mental problems. And she said she endured verbal abuse while in custody overnight.
So they will pay for that, but of course it'll be you, the taxpayers, who are paying for these settlements by these rogue cops.
But here's the thing, is it against the law to be walking around dressed as a woman?
Not anymore.
I thought this is not.
There were such laws.
But that's
around the time of Stonewall.
Yes, there was.
If you were caught and you didn't have, if you had too many items of the clothing of the opposite gender, you could be arrested.
Right. It applied to lesbians too, and it applied to. But I did think this law was repealed some time ago.
Yes.
So the guys up there at Watertown need to get with the program.
Okay. Can we talk about some community woes that we're having?
Sure, go ahead.
Well, a trans-affirming nonprofit now is engulfed in a financial scandal. This is the one in Palm Springs. Following alleged mishandling of funds, the grants that they got, they misused $153,000 in funds. That's not good. No. And then there's Dominique Morgan. No, you don't have this?
I don't have this. It's
okay.
Yours.
Well, this is from New York. Trans leader Dominique Morgan, one of the grand marshals of the New York City Pride March in 2022. She's been indicted for stealing. She makes $200,000, or she was making $200,000. She stole $100,000 from OKRA, O-K-R-A, the Black Trans Service Organization, where she'd been the executive director. Now, what she did was, and she said she was handling cases all over the country of getting trans people who were arrested out on bail.
Right.
And so she made phony receipts for these people in Nebraska and Nevada, and she was pocketing the money and using it for her Mercedes-Benz, for renovating her home, etc.
I always worry, these people
grand larceny.
Think they're never going to get
23
caught.
counts of falsifying business records. just like Donald Trump.
Right. I understand the sense of a grievance. I do understand that, but it's not your money. You're working for the community.
Oh, you got. I mean, if you work for a nonprofit, you've got to be very, very careful with all the funds you use, and they should be audited. And I'm glad that they caught her. Although
what
innocent, until proven guilty.
Allegedly, yes.
Okay, let's talk about out art critic and novelist Gary Indiana, who has died at the age of 74. He was very famous for delving into the ravages of the AIDS crisis.
Yes.
He wrote more than 10 books, including Horse Crazy in 1989, which is a roman à clef about a writer obsessed with a beautiful young heroin-addicted photographer. He also wrote about Andrew Cunanan, the Andrew Cunanan story, about the gay killer of Gianni Versace. He became an art critic for the Village Voice in the mid-1980s, a column he used to express his rage against government indifference to the HIV/AIDS crisis. He later disowned his art criticism. His editor, Richard Goldstein, who I know, said he was an authentic downtown literary artist, comparing him to Frank O'Hara and to Lou Reed.
Yeah,
so
it was definitely a time, wasn't it?
He was quite the character.
Yeah.
All right, international news. Yes?
Right. Yes, of
We
course.
ready?
I mean, we had a small item about the St. Louis shooter, if you're interested.
No, go ahead.
Yes. So Orlando Harris.
St. Louis.
St. Louis, sorry. In Australia, we're terrible that way. We're always saying St. Louis and it's St. Louis, and we pronounce things differently.
Oh, I think some people must say St. Louis.
Whatever.
Calls on this.
Anyway, this guy, Orlando Harris, who ended up dying, I think, from his injuries in the gun battle with police. He did injure 9 people and he did kill 2, 1 teacher, 1 student. The police have issued his 400-page report on him, which includes a manifesto. And very sadly, it's become clear that he struggled with mental health. He had tried to commit suicide a number of times. He'd warned his therapist he was going to shoot up the school, but due to patient confidentiality, she did not go to law enforcement with that. And he did say that he wished to target and harm LGBTQ people if possible.
And let's get guns away from, from so many people.
From the mentally ill.
Hey, big news from the Anglican Church, or at least from the Church of England, yes?
Yes, Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby. He seems like an interesting chap. He's gone on a podcast and just commented that he believes, and he says a number of other bishops also believe, the majority of bishops believe, that sexual activity is permissible within committed relationships, and it is not an actual sin. He's
and
now,
that's
of course,
for gay and straight people.
Yes, and he's now facing public backlash, of course, and backlash from other areas of the Anglican Church because this contradicts Anglican doctrine, apparently.
Well, yes, the thing is, he is the head of the Church of England, but and it's based there in London at Lambeth Palace.
That's right.
But the Anglican Communion consists of a lot of churches, national churches in the developing world that are very anti-gay, and so they're all upset with him, and they're calling on him to be, to resign, to get rid of him.
Yeah. There's an actual faction of, I think it's 2,300 clergy have formed a coalition called the Alliance, and they intend to kind of push back on Welby's statements. If you want to check out the original comments he made, the podcast is called The Leading.
But the thing is, he says, I'm not saying any priest has to perform a same-sex wedding or affirm them and everything. They don't compel them to do that. It would be nice, of course, but that's the way he's handling it. But he says personally, and like a lot of other bishops, I support
He
this.
described, though, this is an interesting thing, he is trying to move it forward because he has described a proposal from church leaders which will allow same-sex couples to be blessed, to have a blessing ceremony, which is different than a formal marriage ceremony, but he wants there to be a prayer blessing on offer.
Okay. And a lot of veterans were dismissed from the armed forces in the United Kingdom for being gay. And they are, unlike here, they're being offered restitution of sorts. But the payouts amount to about £12,500, which is what, about
not much,
about $15,000 maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at the exchange rate. Now, 4,000 are eligible, but vets such as Steve Close, we have a picture of him, say it's not enough to compensate him for living with a gross indecency conviction and living as a convicted sex offender for 30 years before he was, he was pardoned by the, Queen at the time in 2013. They gave them pardons. But, there's a movie about this that's coming in December, and we're going to have, you and I are going to have them on the show.
Yes.
Rosemary Reed. It's called Forgetting the Many, the Royal Pardon of Alan Turing. Alan Turing was pardoned.
Yes,
he was also convicted of homosexuality back in the 50s, the guy who won World War II for us. But 49,000 others were convicted of this as well, many of them in the military and elsewhere.
No, but Close says he couldn't get a job anywhere. He couldn't get a job. He was under incredible mental anguish for all this time. So this amount, £12,500, isn't really enough to cover 30 years of this kind of anguish.
Right.
He's closest one of a number, I think there's about 4,000 claimants for this. So they're going to have to up the budget for
there seems to be no restitution movement in America for this.
In England,
in the United States,
there's none at all.
Yeah, I don't.
They're
trying to reinstate. They're trying to get rid of your 4F and all that. Not 4F, but your dishonorable discharges.
Yeah.
They're trying to do that.
I think they're going to work this out because I think the British government can afford it. There's only 4,000 claimants.
I don't know. You haven't seen the budget that's coming out this week.
Really?
No.
Well, maybe the royal family.
Labour is not spending money very heavily, and they're not going to get reelected if they don't fix the health service.
That's true.
All right, I'm staying in the United Kingdom.
Yep.
There was a teacher in Manchester who was barred from the profession indefinitely for exposing a trans student on social media. Camilla Hannon, 54, a teacher for 23 years, posted offensive anti-trans sentiments on X, referred to trans students as oppressors, and suggested a link between autism and being trans. But she exposed a trans student who she misgendered, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back there. Now she's apologizing and saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean, it's too late. But she remains concerned about gender ideology. She can appeal her exile in 2 years. It's okay. The Vatican came out with its first report on sexual abuse in the clergy after 10 years.
It took them 10 years.
And, it covers some things, but the survivors say this is weak tea.
Yes, too little, too late.
Well, because it's not totally transparent.
No,
That's the issue.
No. Are we jumping over to Asia? Or?
Let's go to China.
Yes, I found this fascinating. It might be resolved, but let's just see. So there is a person, I'd not heard of her, Jin Xing, once described as the Oprah of China because she had her own TV show, 100 million viewers for each show. Fascinating person, the first person to publicly undergo gender reassignment surgery in China, which they did in 1995, by the way, after being an army colonel and one of the featured male dancers of the National Ballet.
Wow.
She adopted 3 children who she raised on her own until she did marry in 2005. Anyway, she's basically a living legend. She's kind of like, I don't know, who's our biggest Broadway star? She's really like, if Oprah was also a ballet dancer and also a Broadway star and also...
Audra McDonald.
Maybe. So anyway... So she was also a judge on So You Think You Can't Dance, the local version. So basically what's happened is she is performing in a play which is written by Cao Yu. He's a really like the Shakespeare of China. And she was seeking approval from Guangzhou region in China. It's a major area. And they've banned her from performing the show.
Well, they're saying that, what are they saying? That
even though she performed it in Beijing and Nanjing and other cities, Shanghai.
They went after her for taking a pro-LGBTQ stance, showing a rainbow flag on stage.
I see. Right.
So this is what, And she's demanding an explanation
Well,
from the authorities.
She's posted to her 14 million followers on the Chinese Twitter, Weibo, and why has this stage play, which has toured the country for 4 years and received widespread acclaim from audiences, been denied approval
Because
in Guangzhou?
you can't do gay stuff, except in Taiwan, which Republic of China claims, but is still, no. Thousands gathered in Taiwan for Taiwan Pride in Taipei.
Yes.
This is one of Asia's largest such celebrations, something that will end if mainland China takes over the island. Pride in Taipei began in 2003 with just 700 people, most of them wearing masks, and this was before COVID. But now they're out and proud.
This second picture here, I really like this. On the left there, the lady making the heart gesture. This is Taiwan's Vice President, Xiaobi Kim. I think that's lovely that she turned out and watched from the parade route.
Taiwan has had marriage equality since 2019. It was the first in Asia to do so.
Yeah.
And Johannesburg Pride marked 35 years in South Africa with hundreds marching in the annual event. South Africa was the first country to
offer same-sex marriage in
yes,
Africa, of course.
but also they put, after liberation, at the end of apartheid,
yes.
they put protection for sexual orientation in the Constitution.
That's the first country in the world to do that, in the whole world.
Now, they still have homophobia, as we do here, despite the laws.
Yeah, so 35 years and still going strong. Yes, Japan. So 2 districts, they call them wards in Tokyo, 2 districts are allowing same-sex couples to be officially listed as unregistered husbands or wives on their residence registries. This is in line with heterosexual common law marriage in Japan. This is starting November the 1st. It's Nakano Ward and Setagaya Ward. The mayors of both wards, I like the way the mayors were basically like, we don't have a problem, this is great. It's not a confusing law. It officially recognises LGBTQ couples who take the Metropolitan Partnership Oath.
And a second high court in Japan ruled that the government policy against same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. This is the second one.
Yep.
This is the Tokyo High Court, calling it groundless legal discrimination based on sexual orientation. The 2 rulings can be appealed to the Supreme Court. The country of Georgia had its elections this week. We've told you they just passed this horrible anti-gay law. The horrible anti-gay party is claiming victory, although, the opposition is saying, wait a minute, let's look over these results. You want to talk about contesting an election.
Yeah.
They thought that about 70% of the country was for moving to Europe, and this party is moving them towards Russia.
Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
There's a crackdown apparently on LGBTQ people. It's apparently being spurred, so they say, by social media influencers there in the country, which is always been considered a little bit of an oasis for LGBTQ people in Africa.
They don't have laws against homosexuality.
No, but there's reports of people just sitting. There was a guy sitting in the street having a cigarette near a hairdressing salon, and he got beaten by a gang of thugs who said, there's a name that they call them. Basically, it's a sort of a hunt rubies. We're out to hunt rubies, and there's a social media person who's instructing his followers to go and do that. Basically, go and gay bash if you can. This is a report that has come from the New York Times.
So the government says, we're committed to protecting all residents, but we won't seek legal protection for gay couples. The government says anti-gay hatred is being stoked by those from outside the Ivory Coast, but many LGBTQ groups there have stopped meeting in public and only at night.
Right. No, it's not good.
All right.
Not good.
In South Korea, this is huge and not happy. Hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million conservative Christians turned out in Seoul to protest a landmark ruling back in July that acknowledged the rights of partners of same-sex couples to receive state health insurance. The leader of the protest says, it's not just a Christian issue, but a huge crisis that shakes our country's foundations. Hundreds of LGBTQ activists and Catholic and Anglican organizations issued a statement criticizing the protest, saying that it devalues diversity and respect for human rights, and it infringes on the minority human rights in the name of the majority.
Why are they all wearing bucket hats? Is that a statement or a fashion statement?
What kind of hats?
Bucket hats. They're all the. Sorry.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't want to be culturally insensitive.
No, I'm culturally curious. I want to know, is it a thing? Is it like the pink pussy hats? I mean, are we making a statement here? I don't know. Trying to catch up. Meanwhile, speaking of hats, down in Australia, here's a very Aussie story. An Australian dad was just sitting there with his wife and 6-year-old daughter in a pub called the Wickham in Brisbane, wearing his Trump hat. And he's shocked.
Trump hat, a MAGA hat.
A MAGA hat in Australia. And he's shocked and disappointed that he was asked to leave. I wish he'd done his research about what pub he was in. He was in the biggest gay bar in Brisbane. So I don't know what he thought he was doing. But he's made a big kerfuffle about it. He's gone on the radio saying, I think we're catching some weird cultural disease from America, that I'm not allowed to go out and freedom of speech and wear my hat.
Well, wait a minute about freedom of speech. This is a private place.
Right.
Now, you can't discriminate on various bases, race, religion, sexual orientation, all those other kinds of things. But very rarely is political persuasion covered. It is covered in some local human rights ordinances, but not, free speech means you can wear your MAGA hat. But if I don't like it and I'm running a business, I can say, you're disturbing, you can leave.
So the female staffer went up to him and said, I hope you're leaving. You're making people feel unsafe. We want you out of here, she said to him. And he's like, what if you wore a pride hat to another place and you got kicked out?
And if they liked it, you could keep it. And if they didn't,
that happens.
unless they were discriminating against you on the basis of sexual orientation. All right. Okay, speaking of discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation, I feel that Ken Burns in his documentaries has discriminated against us forever.
Really? So
God.
Give me an example.
Eleanor Roosevelt never talked about her love for women. She would say she had all these lesbian friends, but, then talk about her. And when he did the thing on Benjamin Franklin, he didn't talk about General von Steuben being gay, which was a key element of him. It goes on and on and on. He's very uncomfortable. So I thought, what's he going to do now that he's doing a documentary on Leonardo da Vinci?
What does he do? I haven't seen it yet.
What I've read is he did an interview and he said, Leonardo is this gay man born out of wedlock who is the greatest painter of all time in some people's minds, and certainly the greatest scientist of his time. So, Ken, there is hope.
That's amazing.
That's going to be on November 18th and 19th on PBS.
Wow. So he's changed.
Now I want to hear about these shows that you saw. Tegan and Sarah on Hulu.
We're doing the movies first. Okay, so basically, this even surprised me because when I was editor of Curve magazine back in the day when it was a print publication, we interviewed Tegan and Sarah and basically did cover stories on them. They're fantastic, as you know, Canadian, twin sisters, excellent musicians, huge lesbian fans. Everybody's their fans. They just have a lovely sort of pop sound. And I was listening to them the other day, obviously, for this story. And I thought, wow, they've really influenced Taylor Swift. You can really hear them in Taylor Swift, that pop sound, right? Anyway, so basically, Hulu has made this fabulous documentary directed by Erin Lee Carr about a kind of secret Tegan and Sarah had. They were catfished and stalked by an unnamed fan who still hasn't come to light. We don't know who this person is, who hacked into their computers, their databases, took images, documents, identification like passports, visas, demos, songs, sound files, and then leaked them to fans via Facebook and social media while pretending to be Tegan, pretending to be one of them who's the one on the left. And they now call this person Fegan, fake Tegan. They don't know who it is. They still don't know. This has been going on for a decade. And anyway, the documentary, it's a very interesting feature about parasocial relationships, how vulnerable we all are.
Yes.
Lesbian celebrity. What happened if Tegan, Quinn, suddenly started messaging me on Facebook? How would I know it's not her?
Your
right?
identity getting stolen.
So very interesting, yep, all of that jazz. So I highly recommend it. It is now streaming on Hulu.
Now, you have seen two big LGBTQ musicals that Ann and I did not see, so we are looking forward to your review of the Big Gay Jamboree.
Big Gay Jamboree.
In the East Village?
Yes, down at the Orpheum on the Lower East Side. Big flowers to Marla Mindell, who is the brilliant gay mind behind Titanic.
Titanic.
Yes, which is the rewrite of the whole, it's turned into a Celine Dion musical.
Got the pictures of the big gay jamboree
Big
up
gay
there?
jamboree, there's Marla in the middle. She's a veteran of musical theatre, having played in The Drowsy Chaperone and Sister Act and a bunch of other stuff, South Pacific. But this is funny. This is just raucous, rowdy, raunchy, gay musical. The basic concept is that she's a sort of I want to say fag hag, I'm going to use that term because that's what it is, binge drinking young woman who has this sort of blackout drunk episode and wakes up trapped in a 1950s musical in a tiny Midwestern town called Bareback. Yes. And then she's struggling to get out and also free all of the town's inhabitants from Bareback. I think it's Iowa or wherever they are. And it's hilarious. It's kind of like the laugh I needed to have because times are rather grim.
Yes.
And I thought, I was sitting there watching it thinking, this is what I remember it was like to be gay. You know, we were funny. We poked fun at things. We're good at satire. We're kind of like cultural vultures who can sort of regurgitate these tropes. Like, you know, the musicals they poke fun at, really, they're like Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, Oklahoma, you know, Music Man, but put through a gay blender. I had a ball. Loved it.
Okay. And then you saw...
Drag the musical, very similar vein.
Where was this? Drag?
So this is at New World Stages. This is playing until December the 9th.
Oh, New World Stages there on 50th Street.
Yes. And it was, the night I went, it was packed. I mean packed. So this is like a rock and roll musical. If you like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, this is like Rocky Horror Picture Show had a baby with RuPaul's Drag Race, really. And Alaska Thunder, I can't say her full name because it's an expletive, but there's Alaska with the most incredible biceps. I wasn't aware that she was packing so much, but my goodness. She can sing. All the queens in this show can sing. There is absolutely no lip syncing allowed, but my favourite part is Liza Minnelli, who's one of the producers, does a voiceover narration. She does voiceover. It's
Voiceover by Liza Minnelli
adorable.
Of Drag the Musical.
Adorable.
At New World Stages.
Yep.
Well, I saw the Christine Jorgensen show at a theater called Here, down on just below Spring Street on 6th Avenue. Now, look, I'm going to keep the picture up, but I had a close, prominent transsexual friend, Dr. Jean Hoff, who in the 1970s would say that when she was invited to a dinner party, I'm the entertainment. You know, which, in other words, she would say it rather, you know, resigned to the fact she was a curiosity then. But you can multiply that by about 100 for Christine Jorgensen, who transitioned in the early 1950s. Front page news in the Daily News.
Famous.
XGI as a woman now, you know, blah, 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 blah. So the Christine Jorgensen show stars trans actress Jessie James Keitel as Jorgensen, as she's trying to make a living capitalizing on her notoriety. I'm famous, so I need to go into show business. And she meets with this Miles Bell, put the picture back up, a veteran of vaudeville played by Mark Nadler, who is a very accomplished musician and does all these shows, to try to put together an act, even though she comes in saying, I don't know how to sing and dance.
Nice.
You're gonna have to help me. I've got money, but I don't know how to sing and dance.
This is true? This is
a true story. It's a play by David Stephen Olson, and it's about whether opposite characters can find a way to work together. And so despite a hesitant start, it's very winning and heartwarming, and it's perfect for the age of anti-trans hysteria, directed by Michael Barakiva. Keitel and Nadler bring these characters to vivid life, entertaining as well as informing.
I'm glad. I mean, I think that one of the best things about going through times like these is we find new purpose for these mediums. We find a purpose in telling the story, in having a silly big gay musical or a drag musical. It's like they're needed.
Yes. You know? And then do we need another Romeo and Juliet? Who knew, put that first picture up, that a 427-year-old play could attract an audience of mostly teenagers and young men and women. But that's what's happening at the Circle in the Square. There they are after the show. They're all kids.
Isn't that great?
You don't see that too often on Broadway.
No.
This is Sam Gold's production of Romeo plus Juliet. So while it's not a musical, there is musical by the hot composer-producer Jack Antonoff. And it's like being at a rock concert.
Well, that would be, if Jack's attached, that would be very much why all the
Yes.
kids are coming out because
Right.
he does Lana Del Rey, Taylor Swift. He
Right.
writes for all of them.
Now, some may look upon the casting of the leads, there they are, Kit Connor of Heartstopper fame.
There you go.
And Rachel Zegler, who played a similar role in the recent film
Yeah.
of West Side Story, as stunt casting. But they're
Well-
both experienced and very winning performers, and it's a modern take on the star-crossed lovers. They and the young ensemble deliver on the poetry, drama, and emotions. Even some of the action and dancing can be a bit extraneous. And there's a lot of gender bending, including transgender lesbian actor Tommy Dorfman as both Tybalt and the nurse.
Oh, that's great.
And Sola Fadiran playing both Juliet's Capulet parents, the mom and the
Well, now I want to
without
see it.
changing costumes, really. I mean, and Gabby Beans portraying Mercutio, the friar, and the prince. Whew!
I want to see it now.
So it requires some concentration, but Shakespeare always does,
Yeah.
and it's a real crowd pleaser.
Did they make any big cuts to the text? Anything?
Yeah, well,
they
sure.
have,
I mean,
yeah.
they did some.
Yeah.
I saw Andrew Lloyd Webber's Sunset Boulevard back on Broadway. It's the Olivier Award-winning production from London, directed by Jamie Lloyd. It's a radical new version starring Nicole Scherzinger as Norma Desmond and Tom Francis as Joe Gillis. They're both in great voice, but this is a show with only about 2 memorable songs. The rest of it, I'm not very fond of. But one of the numbers stops the show, and a standing ovation in the middle of the show. And I have to say, and I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, everybody standing up was a gay man. It's true. It pumps up with huge projected images of the, people invoking silent films. The modernization kind of unmoors it from 1950, which is when it's set. You can't, it's about somebody who's a washed up silent screen star 30 years after silent films, no, not even that, 20 years after silent films ended.
Well, I was going to ask you, for it to really be a radical adaptation, it would be interesting if they updated that. What would be the equivalent now?
We'd have to do the whole thing over. I don't know if they'd allow that.
Hmm.
And we saw Delia Ephron's new play,
Yeah.
Left on 10th, starring Juliana Margulies and Peter Gallagher. And also in that picture are the supporting players, Peter Francis James, and Kate McCluggage.
They were both terrific, weren't they? Doing
Taking on multiple roles. So this is Delia Ephron's story about late in life. She's a widow, recent widow.
Yes.
And she meets this man. This is a true story.
Yeah, it is a true story. So this play is based on her memoir, and it's about, it is about losing her sister Nora, as we do know that, and losing her husband, and kind of, clinging to this love affair of a life she has with New York City, and having romance unexpected with, of course, Peter Gallagher, who's the character's called Peter as well, late in life, and trying to make it work, even though she's very, very scared of it. And of course, she does make it work, but then she gets hit with a double whammy. She gets leukemia.
Wow, don't give it away.
Then I'm not going to say any more. What did you think of this play?
I enjoyed it. It's at the James Earl Jones Theater.
I enjoyed it.
We're down to our last few seconds. Tell us about My Old Ass.
If you want a feel-good thing that's going to be worldwide on Prime Video, do watch this. This is one of the queerest and warmest films I've seen in a long time. My future ex-wife, Aubrey Plaza, on the right there. Amazing Stella on the left. Give it a watch. It's lovely.
And I saw our friend Stephen Henderson revive his theatrical career with a one-night-only show, God Haunted, Stories and Songs from an Evangelical Childhood. Thanks for being with us. Vote.
Vote.